Biden administration announced its latest aid package for Ukraine, consisting of anti-ship systems, artillery, rockets, and ammunition. Now, this comes as another foreign adversary continues to grab headlines and attention, as China's behavior towards Taiwan has the world on edge. Joining us now is the Vice President of Foreign Policy at the Heritage Foundation, Lieutenant Colonel Jim Carafano. Welcome to Wake Up America.
Yeah, I just want people to know that you are not CGI or a hologram. You are a real live human being, a real live post-COVID human being. So exciting.
No, I'm so excited that you're here with us on the couch because there's so much going on in the world right now. First, let's start with Ukraine. So President Biden just gave another $1 billion aid package to them. You know, we talk to folks in Ukraine all the time, and they say we need weapons, right. we need offensive weapons, we need defensive weapons. Is this enough? Like, when does this end? How much money and aid does the U.S. need to give to Ukraine? Because this could last for years. Right. Hopefully not.
Well, first of all, to your point, we're in what's called a chronic conflict. Part of the reason why people aren't talking about this all the time is you look at those lines and they're really not moving very much. Right. And the reason for that is neither side really has the combat power, like all the tanks and people and everything, to really kind of push this to someplace, right? And they can both keep fighting forever. The Russians can go back and rearm and refit. The Ukrainians can fight as long as people will support them, which I think they will. Yeah. It's in our interest to see Ukraine defend itself, because that's not what this is about. Russia just doesn't want Ukraine. They want to reabsorb all the post-Soviet states. They want dictatorial control over Central Europe. They want NATO to dissolve. They want to push the United States into the sea. And that's exactly what the Chinese want. I think that's the one thing people really have to understand. Russia is China's stalking horse in Europe. It wants a Europe disorganized, divided, and distracted so it can push the U.S. out. So it is in our interest not to fight in Ukraine, but to support them. So I think the question is not, and I think you asked exactly the right question. It's not how long are we going to do this? It's, are we doing the smart thing? So I'll give you an example. So that billion's part of the package that was passed, which I actually didn't like, but it was part of the smart part. For example, anti-ship missiles. That's important because if Ukraine can't export its grain, that's a big problem for a lot of people. And so by, say, harvest, October, they've got to have the capacity to push the Russians out at sea so they can actually ship grain out. Otherwise, that's going to be a big problem. So that kind of stuff is really worth doing.
Yeah, I do want to take a quick look, though. President Biden is speaking live. He's hosting an economies forum on energy and climate. You know, we hear a lot about what's going on internationally as well as nationally. He's focusing on climate change. Is his focus maybe in the wrong place right now, you think?
Absolutely. The only thing, first of all, this is Obama 2.0. Let's be honest. It's exactly all the same people that did foreign policy in the last administration. And their approach is, they love doing foreign policy on things that enhance their domestic policy. In other words, foreign policy for them is just an extension of domestic affairs. So they love climate change, right? They love talking about gender studies and all this stuff. They don't like doing the actual hard things, like protecting American interests. And so the climate's a good example. We are in the mess we are in part because we are not an energy exporter. We are not energy dominant. We cannot drive the markets, and the Europeans are dependent on the Russians. We have to break that.
Yeah, and now we have to go to Saudi Arabia, maybe ask for oil, maybe Venezuela. I do want to quickly talk about China, though, because they're eyeing Taiwan. Talk to us about what's the latest with that, and how concerned should the U.S. be of what's happening there?
Well, the number one thing the United States can do is to make sure that the Chinese always understand that an invasion of Taiwan is against U.S. interests, and it's not something we would permit. And here's why. It's not because of chips. It's not because they're a democracy. It's because they're part of something that's called the First Island Chain. And these were really big in World War II. I mean, it's the same reason why we went there. And if you control those islands, if you control from Taiwan to the South China Sea, essentially you control everything that moves up and down the Asian coast. And so essentially the United States would cease to be a nation power. We couldn't support Japan or Korea. We couldn't support any of our interests in the Asia. So we have a real strategic interest. And the way to keep that from becoming a war is to make the Chinese know Taiwan would never be a free lunch.
But do you think China looks at us and takes us seriously with this leadership?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest, the gap is closing. We just heard the other day that Chinese launched a new aircraft carrier.
Right.
This aircraft carrier, this is not a demo thing. This is like a Top Gun thing, right? This is a carrier that's nuclear powered. If the propulsion system works, they can do the stuff our carriers can do. That's a real threat.
Big threat, very scary. All right, always thank you so much for joining us today in studio, Lieutenant Colonel Jim Carafano. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.